Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for September 22nd, 2014. We'll begin with a special order calendar decision items. Item number 1, 99784BZ, 798 Union Street, Brooklyn.
Do we have any questions about this? Are we ready to go?
Item number 2, 19312BZ, 384 Lafayette Street, Manhattan.
Does anyone have any questions about this one?
And next.
Yep.
New cases, item number 3, 69859BZ, 2773 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay. So this is an application to convert a automotive repair center to a convenience store. And I had a couple of questions. The applicant talks about the need that they want to sort of legalize the installation of remediation equipment. And in the photograph, you see some kind of a giant box parked in front, and there's kind of low protective fencing around it. The first question is, what is that remediation equipment? Please provide data on that. And also, what is the noise issue on it? Does it rattle? Does it, is there a source of vibration? And I note also from the photographs that the enclosure is actually much lower than the equipment itself. So it's quite unsightly. If there's going to be an enclosure, it should enclose and conceal it. There's also proposal to kind of relocate. There's some kind of a storage area that's up against the residential portion of the lot. There's a property line that's adjoining residential, and I'm wondering whether the trash could be located on the other side of the property, away from the residential. And kind of a lot of the focus is on not being an imposition on the residential uses. So there's also kind of this disparate bushes along a portion of the fence that is adjoining the residential property. If that could be improved with better planting, higher dense hedges, and continue along the entire property line, residential property line, where that storage area is being removed. Those were my comments.
I echo the questions concerning the remediation enclosure, but also could they give us a status on what that remediation actually is? What are they actually doing? And also, since this is a convenience store conversion, could they give us a traffic sort of pattern on the site? How traffic flows through the site? How do you stop at the convenience store, and just make sure that they're not causing any issues on the street? I think that was it for me. I don't know.
Right, because they don't really give us a parking layout.
No.
Mm-hmm. So parking layout and traffic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Did they say how long the remediation equipment was going to be on the site?
Not it.
Because that would be helpful to know how long they're going to have that there, and also. Sorry. And also, could you tell us the hours?
I also had a question about the curb cuts. They're going from 7 to 6, but 6 seems like a large number to me, and I was especially concerned about the ones right at the corner, and if there's any like ADA pedestrian ramps, and how far the curb cuts are from the pedestrian crosswalks.
Okay, anyone else?
That's it. Done? Thank you. Okay. Item number 4, 90279BZ, 109679BZ, 109779BZ, and 14803BZ. This is 111, 113 West 28th, and 116 to 114 West 29th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, this is an application to amend a 2003 variance. And the purpose of the amendment is to allow the transfer of unused development rights from the subject of the variance to an adjoining property that was not part of the zoning lot at the time of the variance. I found this application extremely confusing. There's a lot of disparate parts, but they're not tied together into an argument. There's, for example, an appraiser report by Landauer that argues that at the time, in 2003, when the variance was granted, there basically wasn't a market for development rights for hotel development, but that argument isn't brought into the base argument in the statement of facts, so you sort of have to figure this out on your own, and you don't necessarily figure it out. There's also statements elsewhere in the application that indicates that there were in 2003 hotels already either built or under construction. And so that doesn't play out that's not consistent with the argument that you couldn't develop a hotel in this area and that there was no interest in hotel development. That needs to be really clarified and cleaned up. The other thing is that the application is incredibly confusing about what it's an application for. Apparently there is one site, which is 11113 West 28th Street, where the statement of facts focuses on that site, its relationship to adjoining properties, what the history of those adjoining properties were. But then it makes mention of another site, 120 and 114 West 29th Street, but it's very unclear, totally opaque about whether this is a joint application, whether there'll be a companion application filed for those addresses. Impossible to figure it out. And then in terms of more specifics, there is a statement that the property adjoining that's going to be the development site for the hotel was not in the same ownership as the property that's the subject of the application, but it does, and it says there were no assemblages, but actually there is no information to support that claim that there's no assemblages. Who were the owners of lots 30, 31, and 32 in 2003, because it's very likely that they were assembled if there was hotel development already in process in the area. And also, in terms of the hotels that are referred to throughout the application all over the place, there apparently is a hotel on the block today. What is that location, and what's the location of all of the hotels that are referred to? When were the applications filed at the Department of Buildings, not approved, not signed off, but when were the applications filed? There were materials showing approvals, but not the filing dates. And then the Jack Freeman's report actually states that the existing hotels on 24th, 25th, and 31st Streets that were approved by Department of Buildings in 2003, located between 6th and 7th Avenue, are irrelevant to the analysis. Why irrelevant? Seems extremely relevant. So please explain why. Okay, those were my comments. Anybody else?
I actually think it would be very helpful if they could provide for us some sort of a historic context in terms of hotel development in the city in general, and especially in that area, because I do remember from my time at Department of Finance, there was a period of time following 9/11 where there was a lot of stock of hotel rooms basically on the market, and occupancy rates were really low. And it started to pick up in the mid-2000s, but I'm not exactly sure when. It would probably be helpful for them and also for us if they can tie in that bit of history with the glut of hotel rooms and maybe the lack of a demand for development rights to build a hotel at that time. It would ground it in history and give us a better idea of what was going on and why there was no market.
Anyone else with this?
Item number 5, 162 and 16395 but BZ, Westchester Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay. This is an extension of term for Physical Fitness Center, Planet Fitness. I think the main question for me had to do with the parking lot. And there were some restrictions about how to prevent it. In the last time that the extension was granted in 2012, which was granted for 2 years, there had been complaints from the neighbors about loitering on the parking lot. We haven't heard anything from neighbors subsequent, but one of the requirements was that there would be a gate to close the parking lot at night, and the photograph only shows there's a chain, not a gate. I'd like to understand how would that keep out loiterers? And then I guess my other question really is, so what happens to people who go to the gym between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m.? How do they get there? I doubt they're really taking a bus or a subway or riding their bike at 3 in the morning to the gym. So where do they park? How many are there who do that? Is the gym crowded at these kinds of hours? And what's the patron count? And what's the parking situation?
No, I guess we don't have a community board vote yet, but I think a lot depends on what the community board feels. Maybe they should, in this case, notify the adjacent residents to see if they have any comments on the way it's been operating.
I would agree. I also had a question about, I guess they have an open ECB violation. If they could talk about that a little bit further.
Okay. Item number 6, 4208BZ, 182 Girard Street, Brooklyn.
It's an application to extend the time to complete construction of a building that was granted a special permit to enlarge a single-family house, and the approval expired in 2013. Explanation was that the economic recession prevented construction in 2009, and then Hurricane Irene and Sandy further delayed construction. And so the application is to simply get an extension of time to complete this project, but the drawings don't show this building as complying with FEMA regulations at all. It's only 3 feet off grade, which I doubt even under the prior FEMA maps was in compliance. And so I don't feel comfortable about approving new construction in a floodplain. I'm assuming this is a floodplain because it's right on the peninsula, surrounded by water on 2 sides, a block away on each side. And so I actually do think that the applicant needs to modify the design of the building to comply with floodplain regulations. Anybody else on this?
Item number 7, 15908BZ, 6870 Spring Street, Manhattan.
This is an extension of time to complete a variance that was granted in 2009, and for similar economic reasons didn't continue. We could use more information on why it didn't continue. I do understand that there is sort of pressure by lenders to get the BSA approval. That was made clear in the application, but it's not at all clear why there was so much delay. Was there a change in ownership? What's been holding up this continuation, since we notice in these neighborhoods there's lots of construction that's been going on for 3-4 years already. Why is this one so delayed?
I had similar questions. If they could tell us more about what they've done that perhaps didn't require so much financing. There are lots of things that they could have been doing. I know that they have to submit to the MTA. Those sorts of things clearly should have been in progress, and they haven't. So I'd like to see more progress.
And my question was, when do they plan to commence? You know, is it imminent or not?
Okay, next. Appeals calendar, decision items. Item number 8, 14514A, 13616 Carlton Place, Queens.
Anything on this that we need to discuss? Good.
Continued hearing items. Item number 9, 300-08A, 3935 27th Street, Queens.
So we're back with 27th Street. I will say that I was not necessarily satisfied with the applicant's submission. I had requested that they give us more information as to how the incorporation of the new lot doesn't warrant us to look at this again. And I think I'd like DOB to actually audit this. I know that we had discussed it, but their submission really didn't address why, especially, I guess it's a 6 or 7 story elevator shaft on the new lot should not be considered, and the additional floor area that was generated by taking out the elevator shaft from the original building. Those items were not addressed in their submission.
Just one clarification, Vice Chair Hinkson. DOB did send a letter confirming that it had reviewed it.
I know they sent the letter.
I just wanted to know if you'd seen it.
And we got the letter, and they said that they felt that the submission, or that the project was fine. I would like them to take a second look, because I just don't, and just for maybe my own edification, but I don't understand how, one, you can change the subject lot in any way, especially meets and bounds, and creating a new zoning lot and not having come here first for it. And second, you're building an extension to the BSA project building on that lot. So I think that at least you should have to come here for our review in some way. So I would like that explanation.
I would like to know how much progress they've made on their stop work orders and violations. I know they said that they were scheduling an inspection by DOB, and how that's moving along, if it's been done. And I think they should just clear up these violations and stop work orders as soon as possible.
I had requested more information about the serious loss portion of the argument, and what I received was basically just a total amount spent and how much was spent prior to rezoning and after the rezoning, and there was really no discussion as to whether or not all of the money thus invested, could it have been, any of it been retained and reused. Also, there's no discussion of the diminution of income because of what remains after, if they don't get the grant. So they really need to flesh out their argument.
Item number 10, 2314A, 19835 51st Avenue, Queens.
Do you have anything to comment?
I have no questions, no.
I have no remaining questions for this.
I think we were satisfied.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. New cases, item number 11, 5709A through 11209A and 12909A through 15209A, Santa Monica Lane, El Camino Loop, and Moreno Court, Staten Island. It's an application to minute extension of time to complete construction.
I actually didn't
Sorry,
have any.
sorry, Chair.
I didn't have any comments on this. It's actually a very clear application.
Good. Okay. Item number 12, 9514A, 237 East 72nd Street, Manhattan. It's a request for an MDL waiver.
Okay. So this is an MDL waiver for essentially fire safety, to be able to add a penthouse to the roof of the building. It's an extremely confusing application. In particular, the plans are impossible to understand. For one, it's only providing plans of the 3rd floor and penthouse. It's not showing the floors below. We're being asked to look at fire safety, and we don't even know how people get out of the building. So you have to supply the plans for all of the floors. Based on the little bit that I could figure out from reading the plans, it seems as if the stair at the 3rd floor that goes to the roof is devoted to the unit on the 3rd floor. If this indeed is a multiple dwelling with 4 or say 3 or more units, you can't have a staircase on the top floor that's devoted to that top floor. You need to be able to exit through. Fire department needs to get to the roof. So there needs to be an interior stair for that third floor unit to the penthouse. Then the other thing about the drawings, I mean, the drawings were, sorry, really bad. So the plans don't show you at all what the fire rating efforts will be. There's no fire ratings on the materials. There are wall sections that have nothing to do with anything. So there's no fire ratings on the materials, no information about where the skylights will be. In fact, there are no skylights shown on the drawings, which are mentioned in the statement of facts. There are no sprinklers shown. The plans and what there is about the drawings don't conform at all to the statement of facts. And, sorry, let's see what else. The statement of facts says that the penthouse will add a 5th unit to the building, but on the penthouse there's only a bathroom and a bedroom. I'm not sure if the author of the statement of facts knows what a unit is. It's not a bathroom and a bedroom. The statement of facts also states that the penthouse addition will not exceed 12 feet in height and 15% of the roof area, so that the height of the multiple dwelling law isn't implicated, height of the building isn't implicated, but we don't know what the area of the roof is, so what's 15% of, we don't know what it is. And then the proposed fire rating measures really do need to be improved. First of all, I would like to have the fire department here ultimately, once we have drawings that someone could read, sign off on the proposal. The sprinklers shown on the certificate of occupancy, there are sprinklers shown on the certificate of occupancy, but it's not at all clear to what extent they exist, so there should be a sprinkler drawing that shows existing and proposed expansion. The sprinklering should actually be throughout the building. One of the things that this goes to is the multiple dwelling law prohibited these buildings, these converted buildings, from expanding at all. And that was because there is a risk of fire, because the construction of the buildings wasn't intended to be applicable to a larger building. And though this is a very modest enlargement, the efforts to justify it need to be significant. So there needs to be extensive sprinklering in the building, and in particular in the stairwell and public corridor. All the entry doors to all the units from the staircase have to be fireproof self-closing, and all the corridors need to have a 2-hour fire rating. Anybody else?
I wholeheartedly agree. I was very disappointed in this application. We're not just simply looking at a 3rd floor and penthouse. We're looking at the entirety of the building, and the drawings were thoroughly insufficient to be able to judge exactly what was going on, where the units are in the building, how big they are, their access to public stair and corridor. It's not just simply whether or not we are going to waive certain MDL sections for a particular portion of a building. We have to look at it at its entirety, and we need to have sections and clear drawings, and this was just really impossible to determine.
Okay.
I agree with you. I feel that when you're adding density and population to a building like this, you have to ensure safe egress for everybody in the building, not just the people on the top floor, but the entire building, because you're basically possibly delaying everybody else's escape. So I think that needs to be addressed. And also, to me, MDL 310 requires that there be practical difficulty, and there is almost no mention of the practical difficulty of the horizontal expansion idea. It just says horizontal expansion impractical. Well, they need to go into detail as to why.
I agree with everything.
That's it? Okay. Zoning calendar, decision items. Item number 13, 265-13BZ, 11827 Farmers Boulevard, Queens.
St. Albans Presbyterian Church, do we have any issues with this moving forward?
Item number 14, 2114BZ, 11502 Jamaica Avenue, Queens.
Crunch Fitness? We're good? Okay.
Item number 15, 12314BZ, 855 Avenue of the Americas, Manhattan.
Any issues with this?
Item number 16, 14414BZ, 1751 Park Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay, this application was marked as closed at the hearing last time on 9/9, and we're going to reopen the hearing because the submissions that we've received so far are not responsive to our concerns. This is an application to allow a special education preschool on the second floor of an existing building that has a community service facility on the third and fourth floor that addresses the needs of adults that are compromised and who include former substance abusers, formerly incarcerated individuals, and we're extremely, extremely concerned about the interaction between small children who have developmental difficulties and adults who have their own kinds of special difficulties and being in the same hallway. We had asked at the hearing that the applicant speak to the landlord about an actual separation and a separate entrance, and what we got instead was a proposal to have an elevator that's devoted to the children, and if we understood it correctly, perhaps someone who sits in the entryway and guards or something. But the fact is that we all know what sort of concierges do in lobbies. They're not there to protect the children from adults who may be acting improperly. And the other concern, and particularly because these children are autistic children, and we've been hearing about children wandering off. Just last week there was another child who wandered away from a school. The idea of them interacting with these adults is very disturbing, and we were not made aware of this use on the third and fourth floor by the applicant. We figured this out ourselves by doing research, which is not how you file an application. You have to be forthcoming, and then we address the issues. So until the applicant can give us a suitable solution, which is to literally have a separate entrance from the street into the building, going into a separate elevator, a devoted elevator for the children, we're not anywhere with this project. So the applicant has to make some more than an effort, has to accomplish that. Otherwise, I just don't see how we can approve this application. Anybody else on that?
Okay. Continued hearing items, item number 17, 7811BZ and 33 to 3712A, 78-70 Winchester Boulevard, Queens.
So we received a submission from the applicant, significantly reducing the square footage of the building. We now have one 4-story building, and we're at 0.80 FAR, so, and 57 units. Do we have any comments about this?
I think it's a greatly improved proposal. I have some other questions, but not regarding the scale of I think they did a good job.
Regarding scale?
I was pleased to see that they brought that scale down.
Any technical questions that you?
Well, I had questions regarding the GCL 36. They show us access to the end of their site, but they don't really show us access into the street system, which I believe they should show us. And they still have not told us what's going to be happening on the adjacent lot 500. I would like some better details on the landscaping plans. And I know in the beginning, the fire department had certain requirements when they reviewed this, and if they're going to be complying with all the fire department requirements. And at one point, there was a discussion of whether they were going to put a pylon sign on the property. Are they still considering a pylon sign, or if that's off the table?
Commissioner Brown?
Excuse me.
Do you have anything further to?
No.
I echo especially Commissioner Montanez's concern about the fire department regulations. In their last go-around, I think they had a 30-foot wide sort of road that traversed the site, and they've knocked that down to 20 feet, and I'm wondering if that is going to be acceptable to the fire department. And then I had a question about what are the accessory uses that they mention on their plans? Is that accessory to the use group 2, or is that use group 4 community facility? It wasn't clear exactly what those rooms were going to be used for. And the construction cost, I didn't have an issue with. I think I understand why perhaps construction cost is more for the ambulatory diagnostic, probably because it's just more intensive in terms of what you have to build out for that. And so I was fine with the rest of the application.
Item number 18, 15311BZ, 2711 30th Avenue, Queens.
We have an adjournment request.
Item number 19, 28612BZ, 1925 Union Street, Brooklyn.
Another adjournment.
Item number 20, 18813BZ and 18913A, 20 Daya Court.
Another adjournment.
Item number 21, 25413BZ, 2881 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
So, do we have any comments on the latest submission?
I had asked them to explore adding 1 or 2 extra 2-family homes onto the site to see if a more efficient type of building would result in a return that was, positive enough to make this feasible. And they showed us a scenario where there were 5 2-family homes. And in this scenario, the remediation costs went up from about $700,000 to $1.1 million, and I wasn't entirely sure why. So what I did was I just inserted the previous remediation cost of $699,000 into that equation, and it still turns out to result in a loss. Anyway, the difference of the $400,000 really doesn't do much to turn the equation around. So given that, I've looked at the July proposal of the 19 apartments, and I think that would be okay at this point.
I agree with Commissioner Otley Brown that it appears the remediation costs, even if they were reduced, wouldn't make that 2-family home viable. But I was a bit upset with the way the consultant just said, well, I just used the prior formula, because if you look at all of the different remediation costs for all the different scenarios we've had, they've been all over the map. So I don't know, when he says I just used the what he called it, the formula consistent with past scenarios, I didn't see any formula consistent with past scenarios, because I felt the remediation costs are all over the map. So I wasn't satisfied with that, and I still do feel that what they're requesting is a big jump from, what's permitted in the area.
I seem to remember, and maybe the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember that we had asked for a 1.5 FAR solution, and I don't think that he addressed that, and I'd like him to take a look at that. My notes indicate that I believe I requested the 1.5 without a length of the building waiver. So indeed, if he could take a look at that. I know that Commissioner Otley Brown had asked him for the 2-family solution, which he did, but I don't think he addressed the issue of perhaps the 1.5 FAR might be more in line with what we were sort of looking for.
And I think that if they're going to go that route, they might want to consider once and for all removing the cellar, because that's adding to the cost.
Absolutely.
And that's what's making it hard to go any lower.
Yeah.
So because the newest scenario does have a cellar, even though there's no parking in there, there's still a cellar with storage units and mechanicals, and that's still finished space, and that adds to the cost. So,
and one would question that if you have remediation costs of that nature, why then do a cellar in the first place? One could do this project without the cellar.
right, so without the cellar, what would they need to do? Do they need to put the mechanicals on the first floor, or would they need to address that
Right.
and then talk about what would happen?
Absolutely.
No, next. Item number 22, 28313BZ, 4930 20th Avenue, Brooklyn.
We received updated photos that were done in, I guess, the correct format that we had asked for. And I believe the applicant has gotten his permission, got a recon from DOB concerning the parking, and he has filed a Schedule A. Am I right on this? If the architect or the applicant could just give us evidence of filing the Sched A, that would be great.
Schedule A.
I just wanted to add that though I understand that no parking is required in a manufacturing zone for these kinds of special permits, I'm just curious where patrons of this facility actually do park. What is the kind of transportation preference of these patrons? If you look at the photographs, there's actually congestion shown in the photographs. You see a lot of cars there. And so we actually need more data. Just because no parking is required under this special permit doesn't mean that parking wouldn't be required for this facility in order to accommodate the patrons. So we need more information.
Anything else? Okay. Item number 23, 4814BZ, 174 Falmouth Street, Brooklyn.
Do we have any further comment?
I'm sorry. I still had a question about this second floor balcony in the front. I mean, they made it a little bit more open, but it exceeds 6 feet in depth, and it is covered. So I was wondering if it complied with 23-131, and I would just be happy if they dashed it in or just said, made it subject to DOB approval.
And my question was about the drawings. It's very difficult to understand what's going on at grade. Is the grade level fully excavated, or is it only partially excavated? Because the section shows one thing and the plans show another thing. And also, as with all of these special permits for enlargements of existing homes, we need to see that the proposed building is consistent with neighborhood context. So we need streetscape images.
Okay. New cases, item number 24, 13-12BZ, 14241 Roosevelt Avenue. Queens, sorry.
This was is a remand to the board ordered by the court with respect to rooftop parking being located on the roof of an existing one-story supermarket. The issues that the board denied the application, and the court has directed the application to be reviewed and for certain conditions to be imposed in connection with the approval of the application. Because the application really did involve a lot of community voice, and the community is the one that's best placed to understand the impact of this rooftop parking on the surrounding residences. The applicant does need to notify the residents of the upcoming hearing, and we also need, so they need to be notified, and we also need new drawings submitted that will show how the rooftop parking incorporates the conditions that were discussed during the hearing process, which include improving the acoustical separation between the parking lot and the residents in the surrounding buildings, and also the aesthetic issues. So there were many comments that were made in the course of the hearing process, and for example, some of the recommendations were the following: parking spaces reduced from 49 spaces to 41, roll down gates installed at the entrance to the roof, the gate to close at 9 p.m. or whenever the roof is not in use, that there be video cameras installed at the roof and entrance to the roof, that there will be an attendant to monitor the roof for illegal parking, as well as assisting in safety measures whenever the roof is open, that speed bumps be installed at the down ramp, as well as signage alerting to pedestrians of cars, that cars will be alerting pedestrians about the cars, that convex mirrors will be installed at the base of the ramp for pedestrians and drivers, that all air conditioning units on the roof will be on the Bound Street side and surrounded by fencing. But this was an issue for neighbors on the Bound Street side, so perhaps there's an alternate solution that might be better and should be considered. That a charcoal filter be installed on the food vent to mitigate odors. That in the event of icing and snow, which makes the ramp dangerous, the roof will be closed. The installation of sound and light mitigation systems along the roof's perimeters, and the installation of security cameras. And what was proposed had been a 4-foot 6-inch high sound attenuating system and landscaping. But the height of that fence was not adequate. So that should be looked at to better shield the residents from the noise and also to improve the aesthetics. Anyone else?
Item number 25, 32313BZ, 127 East 71st Street, Manhattan.
Okay. This is an application to enlarge the footprint and a vertical enlargement of a building. And my only questions were in the statement of findings, discuss how the proposal complies with section 7303, the kind of general special permit requirements. The application actually doesn't go through any special permit requirements. And sorry, a lot of coverages. Okay, that wasn't my question.
I think that the application, you should take a look at the application and make sure that if this is a single-family home, that the plans should show that it's a single-family. I believe it still shows that it could be a two-family. There's a second unit with a separate kitchen on the 4th floor. So if it's going to be a single-family, show it as such. Also, the greenhouse at the rear perhaps should be have a notation that DOB will approve the greenhouse. And I don't think that they showed us a roof plan. Is there access to the roof? And how does the elevator, I guess there's an overrun and an elevator machine room. They haven't given us a section of exactly what that looks like and whether or not it exceeds a height limit of 60 feet. So if they could clean that up, that would be terrific.
They gave us a rear area study to help support the privacy, light, and air question of the general conditions, but I didn't really find the rear area study very helpful. They didn't provide, in my opinion, an outline of what the yards are at that area, the heights of the buildings in the rear, and adequate photos of what all the adjoining conditions are. So I don't feel that they really argued that finding.
No additional.
Okay. Item number 28, 5314BZ, 12 West 27th Street, Manhattan.
It's item number 26, not 28, right?
What did I say, 26? Oh, 26, sorry.
5314.
5314, sorry, BC.
This is, I believe, a legalization for a physical cultural establishment, and I initially didn't actually have any comments, and then I read a comment that neighbors were complaining that there were unpleasant odors emanating from the gym, and that actually made me nervous because why would there be odors coming out of a gym except that the gym is not clean? So one of the things that the applicant needs to discuss is, for one, improving their exhaust system so it's not troublesome to neighbors, but the other is the applicant needs to institute some sort of program that it will describe to us to ensure that it maintains the gym in a sanitary, safe manner and cleans their mats and changes the mats regularly and so on. So I'd like to hear more about that.
I read that they operate 12 hours a day, but I didn't hear them. I didn't see them say specifically which hours. And I didn't see any proposed signage on the plans.
Oh, I actually saw 12 to 2 p.m.
Oh.
And then 5:30 to 9 p.m., 7 days a week, and yeah.
But that was
okay.
their peak hours. And then it says in the statement, it will also be open roughly 12 hours. But
Oh,
it
I
doesn't
see.
tell you which 12.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And did the fire department take a look at this, to make sure that their fire safety plan was like they did?
Yeah.
And they signed off? Okay, great.
Next. Item number 27, 9714BZ, 2226 East 14th Street, Manhattan.
This one again is, I believe, so it's not clear whether the gym is currently operating, so whether this is a legalization or it's a new proposal. So if that could just be clarified. But I note that the certificate of occupancy shows the first floor of the building occupied by a daycare center, and the proposal is to install this gym, this Planet Fitness, on the ground and cellar levels. So obviously noise with a daycare center, children are screaming, but it's a different kind of noise. There should be a discussion about noise separation on the kinds of uses in Planet Fitness, if there's loud music, if there's weights, if there's treadmills, those kinds of things. What is the noise separation? And also, I just also note that this building seems to have a lot of gyms in it. The C of O shows a gym on the second and third floor as well. Is that still there? And this is in a historic district, so we need a certificate of appropriateness on the signage.
We're still waiting for that information. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Item number 28, 10514BZ, 1224 East 27th Street, Brooklyn, sorry.
So again, this is a special permit to enlarge an existing building, existing single-family building. The statement of facts, I think it has an error in it. It states that it's in compliance with the side yard regulations of 23461A and 2348. But it's only kind of, you can say, only partially complying, so that doesn't make it complying. The total of 8 feet side yard complies, but there needs to be a minimum side yard of 5 feet on both sides. So you have to correct the statement of facts to reflect that. Again, with all of these proposals to reduce the size of the rear yard, drawings need to show the conditions of the neighbors to the rear and the heights of the garages that are along the lot lines. But otherwise, this is a surprisingly modest proposal, and was actually, for me, quite refreshing to see. It's just a rear yard addition, that's all it is.
I'd like him to just show us what portion of the attic he's counting as floor area. I think it's probably just a strip down the middle, but I wasn't sure.
Anything else? Okay. That's it. Item number 29, 13014BZ, 605 Fifth Avenue, Manhattan.
I didn't have any comments. We're still waiting for Department of Investigation sign off, right?
Are they
Rory?
proposing any signage?
They say no.
No, I guess window decals or something.
They might have like a little signboard on, one of those little sandwich boards on the street. Sometimes they do that. That's how they don't need signs. Because it's so high up. Otherwise it would be a banner.
Right.
Right.
Okay, item number 30, 13214BZ, 441 Rockaway Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, this is a special permit for a physical culture establishment, Planet Fitness again. And my question is always, when they're in these locations, how do the patrons get to the gym? Is it driving, walking, subway? And if they drive, where do they park? The statement says that it's going to be subway, bus, and bike, but I'm not sure exactly how they come to these conclusions. They should show on the drawings that where the location of the subway entrance is on the area map, since there's a claim that it's very close to the site, but it's not shown on any drawings. Anybody else?
Well, this is a lot a through lot building, and their back end is on Tatford, which is residential on the opposite side of the street, and they say that they're not going to do any facade work on that side. And I think that they really need to. It's in very poor condition. I drove by there the other day, and it really needs some work.
I had questions.
Like paint, like perhaps patching and painting. They have a fence that is in great condition.
And they have barbed wire on the roof.
Barbed wire.
And there are homes right across the street,
Yeah.
so that really should come down.
I wanted to know how they're going to use that rear egress door, if it's just for emergency purposes. And from the photos, it looked like there's a fence on the roof that almost looks like a play area fence. And what was the purpose of that?
Done? Next? Okay. Item number 31, 206 to 212 14BZ, 910 Lanark, 41 West 12th Road, 119 East 7th Road, 592 Beach 43rd, 6952 Thursby Avenue, 3-41 Beach 87th, and 209A Beach 100th Street in Queens. There's a special permit for HPT Hurricane Sandy, rebuild it back?
So I found these very, very clear applications, really easy to understand the situation with each building, very easy to be able to analyze the sort of difference between the non-compliances of the original building that stood on the site or stands on the site and what this proposed prototype will do. In every case, the prototype has fewer non-compliances than the existing building. And so in essence, what this is doing, as far as I can tell, is it's kind of reducing in a certain way, oddly, because the buildings are lifted up, the imposition of the house on the lot size. There's only one exception where the lot is so tiny, there's actually no place to put the house. So it's sort of pushed up against a corner, but really there would be nowhere else to put it, and the original house also was non-compliant. So for the most part, the lots make sense relative to the prototype, and I think it's an excellent program and an extremely well put together application, or a series of applications.
Absolutely.
I had a couple of questions. One had to do with, they mentioned that parking will be provided if possible, but they didn't really relate to it in terms of the plans, and if they could just, is parking required, is it proposed? And in 3 of the sites, they're using an 18-foot front yard where under the underlining zoning, only a 10-foot front yard is required. And one of those sites, Beach 43rd Street, actually leads to a non-compliance in terms of the rear yard. So my question is, why were they using an 18-foot front yard?
Anyone else?
No extra questions.
Okay, that's it. This concludes the review session for September 22nd.